Germany under Hitler's rule was becoming one of the most powerful nations in the world at that time. Their military and economic might was growing faster and faster every single day, and no one anticipated that they were capable of doing what they did. But that would not have been possible if Hitler had not had such great generals around him, who brought him victories all over the battlefields. Here are a few of Hitler's generals that made Germany such a great power at that time. We start from the back of our list. Heinz Guderian. Heinz Guderian was born in Kulm, West Prussia, on December 17, 1888. Born in a military family, his desire was one day he become like his father and grandfathers, who were officers in the Prussian army. In 1903, he left home and enrolled in the School of Military Cadets. This was not approved by his parents, but his desires were far greater than his parents' wishes. In 1907, his father got him under his wing and made him the second lieutenant of his unit. This gave him experience and his appetite for achievements. Then World War I broke out here. He served as a communication officer, which was okay. But the Battle of Verdun brought him the greatest achievement so far. He became a commander of the 2nd Battalion. This was his greatest achievement so far. He was very proud. After the war and the loss, Guderian stayed in the German army, dedicated to his desire to become an important figure in the German army one day. That day came in 1938, when Hitler came to power. Soon his potential was noticed by the Führer, and he was appointed as a commander of German mobile forces and stayed in this position until the war. Then World War II broke out, and with that, his chance to write his name among the legends. His military theories of warfare bring him quick victories in Poland and France, swiping their armies in no time and gaining the reputation of military genius among the ranks. But the problems came when Germany decided to invade the Soviet Union. His troops were not so superior over this rival, mostly because of the condition they were fighting, the harsh Russian winter, and the unbreakable spirit of Russian forces that had nothing to lose. He was forced to retreat. Because of his conflict over the battle for Moscow with Hitler, he was replaced and returned to Germany, where he was appointed as an inspector in the production of armored vehicles and later as acting chief of staff of the Wehrmacht. After the war, despite being an important figure in Hitler's Germany, due to a lack of evidence against him, he was released in 1948. Gunther von Kuger. Gunther von Kuger was born on October 30th, 1882 in Prussia, today Western Poland. Coming from a military family, he was very interested in wars and tactics that were used. Besides that, his father Max von Kuger was a very decorated general in the German army at that time, who served in the First World War, and he was very respected among the ranks. That makes Gunther was very proud of him. Gunther was not the only child from the von Kuger family. He also had a brother Wolfgang, who was a very respected lieutenant among the soldiers because of his achievements in both wars, the first and the second. Everything was ready for Gunther to step on the big stage, from regular field artillery soldier to captain on the Western Front in W1. Gunther was flying among the ranks, showing skills in leading and tactical maneuvers. In 1935, Hitler appointed Gunther as general of his 4th Army. His task was to invade Poland from the east and link with the 3rd Army at the city of Danzig, Poland. With a little resistance from the Polish army, Gunther occupied Poland in no time, gave him a reputation among the ranks, and made him one of the best generals that Hitler had. Victory after victory on the battlefields of Poland and France, his biggest task was yet to come. Hitler decided that the leading attack of the Soviet Union would be Gunther and his 4th Army. His 4th Army was a part of the Army Group, which also included the 9th Army and 2 mobile forces under the command of Heinz Guderian and Hermann Hoth. Their task was to swipe the Russian forces and reach Moscow in no time. But that was only the plan. Because of the harsh Russian winter and the lack of fuel and food, the advance of the German army was slowing down. This gave time to the Russian army to consolidate their ranks and make a counterattack to push the German army back. On the 27th of October 1943, von Kuger was badly injured in a car accident, but he managed to return to the battlefield in July 1944, now as a commander of the Western German Army to replace Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt in the West battlefield. Soon Gunther saw that the situation on the Western Front was not so great, and it was a matter of time before the Allied forces surrounded them. Because of the advance of the Allied forces, Kluge's advice was to withdraw, but Hitler decided that this was a time for a counterattack. The final result was the destruction of Army Group B, and more than 50,000 were captured by the Allied forces. This was a very hard loss for the German forces and the start of the ending. After this, von Kluge was included in Hitler's assassination attempt that happened on the 20th of July, where he arrested more than 1,200 SS and SD members and helped the conspirators. But after the failure of this assassination, he released this member and tried to hide his involvement in all of this. Later, Hitler suspected von Kluge's involvement in all of this, and also that he negotiated with the A-lead for something, and he was immediately replaced by Walter Model. Later, after a meeting with Hitler, he committed suicide and ended his life on 19 of August. Johannes Erwin Rommel. Erwin Rommel, or what his enemies called him the Desert Fox, was born on the 15th of December 1891 in the city of Ulm, Germany. He was the third of 5 children to Erwin Sr. and his wife Helene. Like most families, at that time his father was a soldier, later an artillery lieutenant. Of the 5 children, only Rommel was showing some interest in a military academy. In 1910, Rommel joined the Officer Cadet School in Danzig, today's Poland. After his graduation, he was assigned as a lieutenant to the 124th Infantry Regiment in Weingarten, and later as an artillery commander in the 49th Artillery Regiment. He was flying among the ranks. Soon, World War I broke out, and his military potential and bravery were noticed by the other commanders who anticipated his bright future in the army. During the war, Rommel was injured multiple times, but he was always coming back. Later, he was awarded with Blue Max Cross. In January 1918, Rommel was promoted to Capitan in the 64th Army Corps, where he stayed until the war ended. After Hitler came to power in Germany, Hitler knew about his military reputation and leadership and wanted him in his plans and made him a war minister to the Hitler Youth. Later, Hitler's personal guard for escorting him outside of Germany. In this position, he stayed until 1940, and the invasion of France after he was promoted to Armored Division Commander with only 10 tanks. Here, he showed his potential and military knowledge. His biggest achievement is yet to come. With his tactical maneuvers and understanding of the battlefield, he gained a reputation as a great commander. In 1941, Hitler gave him a role and made him a commander, later a general of the New Africa Corps, who needed to help the Italian forces in Africa, who were beaten heavily by the British forces on an African land. Here, he will get his reputation as a furious commander, and he was acknowledged even from the enemy. After he lost the battle for Africa, Rommel retreated to Greece, where he stayed and waited for the enemy's invasion. But after a few days, he was transferred to northern Italy, where he led the new Army Group B that was formed there, and his only task will be to defend the coast from Allied invasion. On the 17th of July 1944, while he was returning from his headquarters, an enemy plane attacked the car and destroyed the whole vehicle. Miraculously, Rommel survived the attack, but with major injuries on his head and face, he was hospitalized. On the 20th of July, assassination attempt happened over the Führer, and Rommel was involved in all of that, but without evidence, because most of the attackers were killed during the plot. But Hitler knew that Rommel was also involved in all of that because of their previous misunderstandings. But Hitler also knew that Rommel was a national hero of his country. People loved him very much, and possible execution would bring the rage of German people against him. On the 14th of October 1944, Bergdorf gave him 2 options. One was to defend himself personally in front of Hitler, and for sure he would be sentenced to death. Another option was to commit suicide, so no one in his family would suffer after his death, and the government would acknowledge him as a hero, and he would be buried with all of the military honors that he deserved. Of course, he chose the second option,